was the guy comes up and points a gun at someone and then gives the person his wallet.
Right. Instead of a stick up, it's a handover.
How about Blazing Saddles? I'll shoot him. I'll shoot him. For those that have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. That's Bizarro World, baby.
Yeah.
When you threaten everyone that wants to kill you,
it has an amazing effect on people. They go, whoa.
Stop. He'll shoot him. He'll shoot him. All right. So today, here at Beachside Tech Talk, we like to talk about all things automation technology, usually covering the world of blockchain, Web3, AI, robotics, etc. Today, what I want to talk with you guys about is something I keep thinking about lately, which is how does technology play into revolutions? Or you could say reformations. I don't think we see a lot of wonderful, encouraging reformations in today's global world. I think we see a lot of revolutions. We see one happening currently in France. We see it happening all over Europe, depending on your perspective. There's a revolution going on. There's major conflict across the globe. And where does technology play into this? So let me spark it with something that happened in the past. I remember maybe 15 or 20 years ago, Egypt did some things, the government did some things, and those in power did some things that got published on Twitter. And it held the folks in power accountable in a way they had never been held accountable before. Because live in real time, people are showing, look what the government's doing to us. Look what's happening to us right now. And then the kind of global uprising, like, oh, that's not okay. That's a humanitarian problem. And so this regime had been used to, for the last several years, decades, themselves and seeing others that kind of function similar, to not really having a level of accountability. It's like they can do whatever they want. Who's going to stop them? Who's going to see?
What is Egypt? Is it a socialist country?
Today?
Because it's like hybrid. Yeah. It's like not. They do vote in though, right? They have
a lot of.
They don't have a president, but they have like a prime minister.
I believe so.
They have a leader that's voted in, but people still have authority to, like, if something goes bad, he doesn't get his 2 years or whatever. He can get voted out, like today.
Yeah, like, okay, well, it's these different governments have one thing on paper and another thing in action.
Right. Then
like, for instance, Maduro is the president of Venezuela, right?
Right.
But it's pretty strong evidence that he actually is not the valid, legal. Did you guys see what happened? So obviously many people have seen that the American military hit a ship with who they claim to be folks that were gang members that were bringing drugs up to America. And from what was communicated, that is a terrorist attack upon America. We're going to stop it before it gets here. Now, what happened yesterday is Maduro's forcing fishermen to now take their boats alongside the drug boats. So what I saw yesterday was like dozens and dozens of boats, some with drugs and gang members, many just average fishermen that are basically going up to be a shield. Obviously, there was a lot of said about Gaza, that what was happening in Gaza is that
very similar.
It's Hamas taking Palestinians and basically using them as a shield, using the hospitals as a shield, schools as a shield. So if it wasn't for technology, if it wasn't for social media, if it wasn't for the ability for folks to grab their phone, press record, go live, upload, share in real time, if that wasn't happening, we wouldn't know any of these things. It would just be like, what does the American government want to tell us? What do the big legacy media companies want to tell us? But no longer is information held, and no longer is it the PBS and the Fox and the BBC and the CNN. They do not get to determine what we have access to in terms of knowledge. So the revolutions that are going on are now broadcast to all of us, but maybe more important than that, revolutions are created. The spark that lights the fire happens oftentimes because of access to knowledge, and the access to knowledge is because of the way that technology has permeated society. We have enough servers, enough cloud, enough phones, enough internet, enough cameras, enough social media users that we now have an ability to where just the average guy or gal can post something and get people to feel like, oh, it's time for an uprising. So obviously each culture is different. I think France has had 10 or 11, maybe even 12 full-blown government overthrow revolutions in the last 250 years. America's been able to stick with their Constitution, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence kind of vibe since we started it. So maybe we're a bit less prone for a revolution, but we certainly are seeing it on a global scale. And I think tech has a lot to do with it. So love to hear from you guys. This is the conversation I really wanted to have today was, what do you all believe about technology's impact upon revolutions happening globally, worldwide, that we see all the time?
I think I definitely want to mention something I just recently saw. So the Kremlin, or someone from there, they had just kind of thrown this out. I don't know what the context was behind this, or if it's valid, or if there's anything that is behind them saying this, or if it's just propaganda. But what they said is the US is going to, whether they will or not, wipe out all of their debt by putting it on stable coins and then devaluing the stable coins.
It's a little bit different than that. So that's how Russia framed it. One of Putin's guys, that's how he framed it. What he was, and again, he's saying something in Russian, and then we have people that are translating it and trying to sell headlines. What they're basically saying is that Trump and the administration pushing forward the Genius Act, which is saying that independent companies like Coinbase can have USDC, Tether can have USDT, PayPal, I think, has USDP, etc. And what they're saying is that this pursuit of stable coins is going to make the dollar more valuable than ever before. Therefore, the $35 trillion of debt that America has will be radically impacted if things go a certain direction. So if you look online, you can see a lot of explanations of this. They're quite sophisticated, and they're very, everybody's taking a lot of liberty with making declarations of what is. Nobody really knows exactly what's going on, but certainly I believe Trump's administration, any administration, want to try to deal with the debt. 35 trillion is overwhelming. I don't see any way out of it except for innovation. And they see as stablecoin innovation, this Genius Act, moving toward an independent, decentralized digital dollar, kind of bringing the best of decentralization, the best of the primary global currency together as being, this is the path forward. So whether you agree or don't agree, that's basically what's been proposed. And I see a lot of positive in it personally from what I've researched. Back to the revolution, I just want to talk a bit about, what do we think about technology's impact on revolutions that have happened, revolutions that are currently happening in the news today, and where is this going to take us as a society? So jump in, and then I'll mention a movie I've seen recently called Mountainhead that I think really, really laid out a concerning dystopic view of how technology can impact, uprisings worldwide. But we'll get to that in a moment. Let's just first kind of stick on the big topic. Go ahead, Nigel.
I think it can go either way, and here's the two flavors that I think it could go to. One, I think it's helped to bring transparency to things, but why, like everything else, when you bring transparency to a situation, those who are not behaving properly tend to feel a type of way.
What type?
So I'll give you a perfect example. When people started filming law enforcement doing their jobs, you can tell if you film a police officer, they behave differently. Now, and I'm not talking about the cameras. They behave differently. The escalation is different. They behave differently. Some of them. Let me take that back. Some of them. I found a huge difference between New Jersey, New York, and Florida. Like in Florida, in Ybor City, there could be two sides of a street where they're arguing, protesting, And the cops are just kind of sitting on their cars, not agitated. They're just watching. They're observing. True protect and serve. I found more in New York and New Jersey. There's a lot more, you can call it proactive, but more aggressive type, way. Now, in those situations, filming would look different. In Florida, I found you film yourself with the cops. They're like, hey, they're more participating. In New York and New Jersey, not so much in my experience. So that's one view. So, and I feel like it has some positive impact, but information itself is so powerful that if we don't start attaching real accountability to who has access and how it's being used long term, not just in a skew, we run the risk of having real problems of being able to film being taken away, as well as just it being looked at as something super negative. Like you can't do that because you're going to incite a riot, as opposed to just report what's there. So I think there's a balance, and we're not there. I think that when people are reporting the news, just saying the news and not owning this little soundbite that you put out that could be interpreted is not enough.
Whose news?
I think the moment, right, Danny.
Whose news?
The moment someone has to own what they said and what the fallout can be,
That's what
because it's
problems happen.
deficient,
Yep.
then I feel people, again, behave better.
Well, you put the accountability on the table too, but not only that, I thought it's a law now. It's a nationwide law that these police enforcement need to, as soon as they get out of the car and start, as soon as they get out of the car and they start any type of engagement, or even before, because things can happen as soon as they get out of the car. If they do run into a problem situation, things happen right now. So as they exit the vehicle, they are supposed to be turning on their cameras now for everything. But I have seen some footage where something goes down in a situation and it took 20 minutes, something domestic violence or something like that, and if someone winds up getting hurt in that situation, and it may have been negligence or something on the part of the police force, and I've seen situations where they have said, turn it off, and they go dark on their camera, like they feel the supervisor has showed up now, and so whatever we're talking about, and that they're talking about something, so they've actually turned off the camera. And that makes me feel a little bit weird, because if they're supposed to document this, there is no turning it off. It's, it runs until forever, and it can be edited if you want to turn it off, if you want to, but it should still be documented, whatever the case may be. And it's weird because the times that it gets turned off are the most critical times. There's a reason why.
You mean like the 3 minutes they're missing when Epstein hangs?
Exactly. Right. I mean, like the 3 minutes, that's the most crucial time point of anything where the stuff goes off. And it's, it creates a little bit of a...
If all these public service environments, so cops, firemen, paramedics, maybe even into other environments, politics would be quite fascinating to me. If everything was recorded and put on public ledgers so it can never be erased or manipulated, that would change everything, because then people don't feel like, well, if something happens, I can just go and remove 3 minutes.
And everything is being recorded right now. Seems like it's a little bit one-sided. Every street light you do, and
they're all recording us. There's no doubt that those that are in charge are definitely using technology to record the population. And you'd think that since we're the ones that are funding them with our taxes, you'd think that since we're the ones that are choosing to be peaceful amidst them having all this power, that we continue to go through the rhythms that we would be able to demand that, hey, you want to put...
It's a fair shake. Let's have it a two-way camera. You got one front, one back. So whoever's putting this up, government, there's one pointing right back at you too. We got a two-way camera going. One for us, one for you.
And the pushback will be, well, we can't let China, Russia, or other, potential adversarial government people and cultures know what's going on. So we can't share with you what's going on privately, because then we'll let them know. It's classified. And so it's like, this is the constant tension that's happening. Now, for me, I find it weird just here in Santa Cruz County, like driving through Aptos and seeing the number of lights or cameras they put up on the lights lately. It's weird to me. I just think to myself, who in the
seen the amount?
It's so many.
There's like 12.
It's so many.
3 on each pole on
Yes.
4 sides of the street.
Yes.
Okay, for angles. I mean, it's whoa.
It's just
to me, it's different entities, and some might be private or third party, or
there's no clarity. There's
no, we don't have. Those are cameras for us. It's for our safety, supposedly. Maybe
so this is a thing where it's like,
so we should have access to these things.
Are we as a society going to revolt against this overplaying of a hand? Do we recognize that there are people making decisions around how our money is being spent? Because every one of those cameras was bought with taxpayer money. Every one of those cameras are connected to electricity being paid for by taxpayer money. Mm-hmm. The internet connectivity, taxpayer money. None of us know what's on those cameras.
Right.
None of us know where it goes. I was never even, I don't know that it was even voted on. It just all of a sudden they're there. And this is not just us. This is across every part of the developed world.
Right. All nations.
Yes.
How about it seems to be the last propagated for sure site of people overthrowing their government for sure was when they did early 1900s with the Tsar of Russia. That last revolt where they had over 50% of the population was just, we're tired of this elitist category type of thing. And then you had a whole czar, what they call czarists, that were saying, no, this is good, the way we've got it going on. And you had a complete upheaval of your middle to lower class society that came into the czar's palace and said, "You're out of there," and he exiled himself and got himself out of there for fear of, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we don't want you there, and if you don't leave when we're telling you to leave, your choice, and there's going to be consequences. Ergo, he leaves, knowing that, okay, I'm not in power. Even though I'm the czar, I'm like the king.
Yep.
The people don't want me in here. I gotta go. We don't have anything like that in place anymore. If the people do an upheaval or a rise, it's considered that we are riotous. It's mayhem. We become belligerent. It's quiet them down. Don't excite them.
We changed our government recently, and it was called an election. It wasn't called a riot.
That's organized.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a benefit to having regular elections every 2 years, because it takes lets the air out of the balloon and keeps the balloon from popping, because it's like, okay, well, I may not like this, but at least I can vote differently in 18 months.
I was just saying, for democracy, that we are such a democratic country and such a free will, free-spirited, capitalistic place that we still, if we want someone out of power, we don't have that type of authority to say, you've been naughty here for multiple times, Bill Cosby kind of thing, or I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but something crazy, and you just got to go. Not in 3 more years when your time's up, not in 2 more years. No. Right now. And why? Because you should. And there's nothing in place that we can actually, or even have that person in authority, like I'm saying about the czar. This guy is a king. He's the czar. He knew, if I don't get out of here, this is not something that I'm going to play with. I'm going. They win.
But how do you get something like that in place? Because the only way that you give that power back to the people is by the politicians giving it back. But they're not going to give it back, because that's taking the power away from them and giving it to you.
They're not supposed to have the power.
So how do you get something? I know, but how do you get something like this to even happen?
Starts just by us talking about it right now.
I don't understand what you're saying, Dan. It seems like you're saying that we don't have a mechanism to get corrupt leaders out the way Russia was able to get the czar out.
I'm just saying.
We do. It's called a recall.
Yeah, well, we do recalls, but they tell me the last time that we've had a recall that was effective. It seems like we move so fast. A recall may be presented, but then it quells the chaos for the moment. And then what happens to the recall? Really, do you follow up on it? Are you keeping tabs of it? Seems like that recall action is just a drag out procedure to calm the nerves of the chaotic, bring that mayhem down, and then the normals will move on, and maybe it'll be forgotten about. But I'm just saying, if someone needs to go, then someone needs to go, and even they would be the first person to admit, I'm not wanted here anymore, and maybe they should just leave that, at that moment, graciously and happily, knowing, they came in.
Well, I mean,
with the vote of
Russia's
people.
revolution was not gracious or happy.
I just use that as an
out?
extreme. I just use that as the extreme example of a czar deciding to leave because the people came to the front. Mass people came to the front and said, "It's time for you to go." And if you don't, I'm sure it was threatening or something. But he left because he felt unsafe, and that was. That's not how it should be in my mind. If someone needs to go, or if a group of people, let's say whatever it is, your mayor, your senator, your governor, whatever the case may be, if you've got a population of that entity, if it's the mayor, it's the city or county, so you get the population. If you get a majority vote that you got to go, maybe you should step aside.
Well, we'll be back again in just
Run
a moment.
again.
Talk more about this conversation. I think it's obviously can lead to quite a bit of passion. I'm looking forward to continuing it in just a moment. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us.
Daddy.
All right. Hello, Internet. Happy Tuesday to you. This is going to be an interesting conversation to have. I've done a bit of questioning around what type of revolutions, and revolution is kind of a weird term also. What type of revolutions are, impacted by social media and AI? And it's quite interesting because a lot of the stuff we don't actually hear about. So
you can call it rising of tide,
yeah,
or something because the revolution sounds
maybe over. Yeah,
I
maybe
don't
too
know.
big.
It just be
Uprising,
yeah,
it might be
think
right.
about it, like, what's going on? What are you talking about? You just everybody's grabbing sticks and
Right.
pitchforks, and here they
Yeah.
But or even golly, you just want to in awareness,
Right.
that you realize, your life is going so fast, you don't have a lot of time to engage with these policies when things that we're talking about. I hope that I could just go into a ballot. How many times you hear, vote the party line?
Right.
Vote the party line. Okay, Lemmy.
Right.
And I, okie dokie, don't know what's going on, when a meeting is, what it's about. I'm just saying.
That's 80% of California does that for Democrats. It's crazy.
Weird.
Crazy.
And I hold myself first accountable. Because if I want to know, there's things here to do and find out. Don't gripe and moan about it.
But the party system just is really bad.
What do you think, Nigel? I see you leaning in.
I think it's the same accountability issue. If people's names are tied to the things that they do, I think we will see this turn around super fast.
Yeah.
Because, and I mean this, if we can agree that something is bad, net bad, like across the board, maybe not even across the board, 80%, 85%, 90, go crazy, 90%. Make it radioactive so that now it's unfashionable for you to be to have anything. I'm not going to have anything to do with that. That's what you want. That's what you want to do. It's not about being punitive and I'm going to exploit you or shame you. No, I'm going to make it so you just plain and simply do not want to do it. All those cameras, great. Who put this camera up here? Who specifically? And what are you connected to? You're not going to just hide. What are you doing? A shell game? This is not shell corporations. You're trying to hide money. No, out in front.
How about every corner of these cameras? Shouldn't there be a sign like we have a sign for don't park on this time of that?
No, you should be able to scan it with your phone. We have the technology. Scan with your phone.
For all camera footage. It runs all day long. This is an open camera. I mean, there's nothing trying to hide from you. So if you want to go at any time and open that camera footage, you're welcome. Oh, you got a ticket from the thing. It wasn't read.
Right.
Yeah, see, I was close. You know what I mean? Maybe you take it to the judge and he's going to say, yeah, yellow.
Right.
No pain.
That's interesting because our laws currently say that there's no expectation of privacy in a public zone. So make every camera that's in a public zone just mandate that it's open source. Anyone can see it. So we're all spying upon each other. That's an interesting idea. Kind of like it.
Yeah, link on the corner that just says here's the link to the camera footage.
So people would start behaving differently in public. I mean, you're already kind of seeing it. You know, everyone basically knows that someone's filming them somewhere. I don't know how much that's
Okay, gentlemen,
gotten into our behavior.
Time to rock and roll again. Here we go. Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk here at 1340 AM, KOMY, the home of Schoolhouse Radio. Last month, there were a group of people from work all went to go see a Coldplay concert. Two of those people were married, but they couldn't keep their hands off each other. That camera exposed them. I imagine they didn't think that was going to happen. I imagine Coldplay didn't think that was going to happen. This week, there was a guy, he ran up to a baseball, got the baseball. He was so pumped. Brings it back to his son. Look, son, I got us a Phillies baseball home run ball. Some lady comes over, starts screaming, yelling, demanding that she deserves the ball. She gets the ball. She saw the ball, whatever she said to him. She battered him verbally so much that he finally just gave her the ball and said, get away from me. There's no way the Phillies stadium thought that was going to happen this week. There's no way that she could have ever imagined that she would deal with the level of pushback. Finally, this week, there was a guy that has been apparently arrested 14 times and released. And this week, he, without any apparent motive, grabbed a knife out of his pocket and killed a woman on a train or whatever subway type thing. And never could the person that installed those cameras think to themselves, like, I imagine this is going to be the result of the cameras. Yeah. The reason I mention that is sometimes we only see subjectively what technology is doing. We see like, wow, the access to cameras and the internet showed me this violent thing on the subway, or showed me this unjust thing at the baseball game, or showed me this humiliating, embarrassing thing at a concert. And we don't really realize what that means on the bigger stage. And what it means is that we have cameras everywhere. You know, just look at the new administration, whether you like or hate, regardless of how you feel about Trump's administration. One thing is for sure, there is a level of access to this administration that's never been there before. They did their 7th live streamed cabinet meeting recently for over 3 straight hours. So if you love Trump, you probably are stoked about that. If you don't love him, you might find ways of criticizing it. Nevertheless, here come the cameras. Here come the live stream. It's all live in real time. And that is access. Technology has given humans access to see what's the conversation behind the closed doors. And so we're seeing more and more and more things being exposed where the people wouldn't have imagined. Like, there's no way that lady thought to herself, you know, I'm going to get this baseball and I'm going to deal with the level of hate that most humans never have, and it's worth it. No, she would have never gone over and done that. You know, I imagine the guy that slashed the lady's throat wasn't really assuming that there's a camera in there. Or if there was, who cares? I've been let off 14 times. Like, you know, and the same thing, right? There's always this kind of thing of, oh, the technology, the way that social media plays out, the access of internet, that might affect other people, but not me. But, you know, if you do the naughty, you might get yourself in a lot of trouble. You know, there's that old saying, you do the time, or you do the crime, you're going to do the time. I think it's a little bit different today. Sometimes it's not about doing time in jail or prison for doing the crime. Sometimes it's about the public square and the way it turns against you. For being caught cheating on your spouse, for being caught unjustly taking something from a child, for being caught murdering someone with or without a motive. So these are the types of things that we see on a regular basis. And I do wonder, do seeing these types of things on a regular basis cause us to become numb? Is watching violent movies and violent TV shows, playing violent video games, does it cause a human to become numb to it? Does violence or unjust actions not matter the way they used to matter? And it's hard to say where each person stands. I just try to think to myself, how about me? Where do I stand with these things? So I'm bringing this up to spark our conversation for the next 20 or so minutes as we tackle this next segment here at Beachside Tech Talk. We often like to talk about things like AI, Web3, robotics, and this kind of covers a lot of it. Without the technologies, these things are not exposed to us. So anything on your mind, gentlemen, that kind of comes into play when you think about this in a broad way, not just a revolution in a country, but a revolution in society, because there's an uprising against injustice, right? So that's why I mentioned those 3 stories that have been in the news recently, because they all took off and have had, 1 billion plus views. Most everybody in America and out of America knows exactly the 3 things I'm talking about, because they've seen it on social media, and they saw it because there's cameras somewhere, right? And that's all technology kind of finding its way out into society.
I think maybe it didn't just numb us, but because that would mean you'd have no feeling, but definitely desensitized. There's a desensitization that's happened, and I'm thinking like ever since Columbine, when that first happened, because before that, there really was, I don't know what there was a shooting at a school ever before that, but what was that, a trend? After Columbine, you have school shootings and they still happen today. And it's been 20 years since the Columbine incident. But the desensitization of it is what I'm concerned about. If we never had a school shooting up to today, and all of a sudden you did have one, the reaction, the national reaction, I think would be significantly different than it is now in reality. Like you would do a 9/11, you would shut a nation down and find out what is going on in the school with minors. So you shut everything down and immediately figure out what went wrong. And the desensitization of it is like, we can't believe that a catastrophe like that can happen. Or the Las Vegas shooting, a guy up in a hotel room just emptying clips down into masses of people. These are things that are unfathomable. It's really hard to even understand in our minds. If you just think about it for a second, that's an incredible thing to have actually happen in reality. This is not, something that's scripted or thought of. To have an individual or human being actually cross the line like that, where they're mass casualties to, just off the reservation.
Right.
But we've desensitized ourselves so much to where we've had, 20, 30 of these events that happen, people driving cars through crowds of people. And it's not like par for the course or anything, but how long does it take to forget about these things now? Because are we just setting ourselves up for when's the next one? Oh, that's another thing that has happened. Because I think that's where we need to tap into our social wealth, in each other, because it our social media and things make us move so fast. It's easy to forget. And like I said, we've had, multiples, 20 of these incidents like that. And they seem we can have one every year, but then it's 2 months later and we forget about it. We're not talking about it anymore. No change.
Nigel asked the
Columbine
question.
was not.
Let me just read this really quick first, Ted. Nigel asked the question, who thinks transparency fosters better behavior in humans or may have otherwise behaved inappropriately? So the question that Nigel typed out is, do people do better because there's transparency or not? And I think that that's a complicated question to answer. Go ahead, Ted. You're going to jump in and say something. You can say whatever you wanted, or you can tackle that.
Well, I'm pretty sure the data shows that transparency dictates better behavior, although it's certainly not a cure-all. I'm pretty sure the data shows that, the wide adoption of the body cams on police officers has a positive net result on them behaving more. What I was going to say, though, that brings up some of the complications. Columbine wasn't the first school shooting. It was the first school shooting
That was-
in the modern
that was
era
prop-
that
it was
got 24/7
propagated, right?
media coverage.
I'm saying that it was the biggest propagated one, and then it had to do with minors. So there was such a huge.
No,
thing.
there were school shootings having to do with minors that were horrible and massacres. But that was the one that got 24/7 news coverage because it was that it was at that critical time. So the perception of it, and school shootings have been a rare occurrence. They're still overall a rare occurrence, but the psyche is not that way because now we're aware of them. So it's a complicated thing. And there certainly are copycat things, like the copycat shootings, and Columbine inspired others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact data. It'd be interesting, the data of the actual occurrence of them per capita and all that. But certainly the awareness of it has spiked, the fear of it. Over the last, I think, 3 decades or so, violence has decreased, but our perception of violence because of the news has increased. So when we actually are, in objective terms, safer, less likely to get mugged, things like that, our perception is the opposite because of the news, which is just an interesting phenomenon.
When I hear you say the word massacre, it just reminds me of the Boston Massacre. How that was something that not that many people died, but the way that it was taken and the way it was told to everybody is, guys, we are done. America is going to be America, and everything came from after that. It's not that it was an actual massacre. There really isn't a solid definition of that word anymore. But it was that it was taken in that way. And in a similar way, many of the things that happen today, like those 3 stories you're talking about, Dad, they're quite unsettling. They're quite anxiety producing. They're quite annoying. They bother you as a human, and you don't want to see it, but yet you want to see it and you don't even realize it.
So Teslas, when Elon was in the administration and he had the appearance of one of the more influential people early on this year, and people that did not want Trump to win the election, put blame on Musk's shoulders because of Musk's money and influence, people started keying Teslas. And it was like a common thing.
Dude, his factories were attacked.
I know.
Firebombs were thrown at him. Molotov cocktails.
In fact, I have a Tesla, and our Tesla has had people down the Capitol Village where we live throw food on our Tesla and things of that nature, and break our license plate thing.
I seen
got
the bumper
broken
sticker yesterday that said, "I love my Tesla, but I hate Musk."
Yeah, go sell your Tesla.
So I thought that was just weird.
It's so silly. But here's what I want to say about this. When people first started keying Teslas, they were ignorant to the fact they were on camera. Mm-hmm. Then people start getting prosecuted. People start getting prosecuted for damaging a vehicle, and they start having felonies, pointed toward them. And guess what happened? Tesla damage, just people going up and keying Teslas and doing things to one-off Teslas, fell off a cliff. Why? Because everybody, there's Sentry mode, and the cameras record everything going on around it. So you might hate Tesla. Go buy a bumper sticker instead. Don't damage somebody's car, because now we're going to be held accountable for it. And so this is an example of answering Nigel's question. Does transparency foster better behavior in humans who may otherwise have behaved inappropriately? When people didn't realize Tesla records with 12 cameras around the car, they were behaving poorly. But as soon as they realized there was a level of transparency and that they likely were going to be recorded by the Sentry mode and were going to be held accountable for their actions, all of a sudden, better behavior happens. And so this is a very, very, very small example of how transparency changes people's behavior because of consequences. People don't want to pay the price of the consequence. No one wants to go to jail or get a fine or get embarrassed and humiliated and hated on by social media. So they choose not to do the thing that they may have in their heart. It's kind of this anger is flowing, and I'm just going to key a Tesla to say, I hate Musk. I'm so mad at Trump. I'm going to mess with someone's car. Well, now they're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. The consequence is too great. And so these levers are also pulled for governments, as we see globally, and pulled for just small little societies. So I'll share one more story, and I'll kick it off to you, Nigel, since you asked the question. There was a viral moment recently in San Francisco. There was a guy at a bus stop without a bench. The bench was either removed or missing or whatever. And people just go crazy. Like, this is unjust. This poor guy has to ride a bus. Most of us in San Francisco don't have to ride a bus. We don't know what it's like to depend on public transport, but there's not even a place for the guy to sit. This is wrong. And this uprising happens locally in San Francisco. And the end result was private citizens installed 77 bus seats across San Francisco. So there's an example of, once transparency came and there was a problem that was in place, the people did not rise up against the government and say, you better fix this problem. There's no seats for people that need to ride buses. The people rose up, gathered together, and they installed 77 seats on their own. So this is an example, again, of there's not always the end solution. The end solution to problems are not always simple. Like, they're the problem, make them fix it. Sometimes it's like, there's a problem, maybe it's their responsibility. They're not going to do anything about it. We'll take care of business. Nigel, did you want to jump in and say something?
I do. I think this is where technology and data can be so helpful. And we as humans partnering with it. So your point was pointing out a problem, but we have the opportunity to present a solution. I know when I was working in corporate, there was managers I had that said, don't come to me with any problem without a proposed solution. You know, and to me, with AI, we have so much opportunity, so much data that's so robust. These light little metrics that people give, I think they're just lazy. And I don't think I'm being unfair by saying that, you know, but that's my opinion. Like, it's lazy. It's one thing to say, okay, school shootings. How many people saw that coming? How many people should have saw it coming? You think you're going to just keep picking at kids, and nothing's going to happen? That's just not intelligent. So here's the technology solution. Put on some virtual glasses and let people see exactly and feel. You have haptic vests. Feel what it would be like. You're picking on this kid. He goes, picks up an AR-15. Lots of casualties. No one's actually dying, but you're getting the experience. Mm-hmm. So we can no longer pretend, I don't know. I had no idea. Of course you do. I'll simplify it for everybody. If you see another human doing anything, know you're capable too. You may not do it, but know you're capable too. We're the same species. So.
Ted just posted, Gemini has an interesting response to Nigel's question. It says it's a mixed effect. And I think one of the things that I'm assuming about that is there's certain people that, because of the transparency, because of the cameras, because of the ability to become hated in the media, that very thing draws them to do the wrong thing. Because they say, nobody sees me, nobody cares about me, nobody knows me, I'm going to die and my life is not going to matter. And I'd rather die being shot by a cop and have my life matter in a bad way. I'd rather my life matter because I was a mass murderer and be known and be infamous than be nobody. So if I can't be famous for doing something good, I'd rather be infamous for doing something bad than just not matter to the world. And so this is the flip side where Gemini says it's a mixed effect.
Gemini didn't come up with that, although that's very interesting. And that is a real effect of the copycat things. But Gemini wasn't that clever. What is said on the positive things is that transparency can deter bad behavior, increases accountability, discourages wrongdoing, builds trust, allows for informed decisions. This is how Gemini said transparency can backfire, though. Creating a blaming culture. If the facts of a mistake are made public without context, you blame the person, and employees may be afraid of admitting mistakes. Increases distrust and anxiety. So excessive transparency can be perceived as a lack of trust from management. I think Gemini's getting the data and analyzing this in a work context. So yeah, if your employers are demanding you, looking over your shoulder all the time and calling that transparency, we can all see how that would backfire, creating distrust and anxiety. Then here's something that's interesting. It can promote cheating and moral licensing. So behavioral studies show that transparency disclosing a conflict of interest, such as a financial tie, can perversely lead to more biased conduct. The person disclosing may feel that having already done a good act, they are now licensed to pursue their own interests. That's very interesting.
Well, we want to thank all of you for joining us here for Beachside Tech Talk. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back for the second half of our show. Thank you for being here with us.
So rarely does anybody actually talk about the philosophy of why we decentralize. Usually it's about how you make money, or it's about how you build a community, or it's about how you stay relevant. But very rarely is it, what is the practical and thoughtful reason on why we decentralize, and what is the spiritual and emotional reason on why we decentralize? I'm going to be bold enough to say that for the next 10 minutes, I'm on holy ground. I'm taking off my shoes, and I'm doing something I've never done. And I'm going to start my talk on my knees, just declaring to the Creator of all things, may I be wise and effective with what I'm about to share. Today I was interviewing Donald Lim, and he said something very nice to me. He said, "Ian, you're a prophet." You know, in technology, we call prophetic people futurists. And, spiritual communities have always called people with intuition prophets. Now, I'm not a foreigner from America. I'm not an American prophet to come shine the light for all of those in Southeast Asia to know something that America knows. If anything, I'm a prophet of a different kingdom. I'm a prophet that ideally would come to tell you what the Creator might have in His heart for you and your people. Why your country will benefit so greatly from the philosophy of decentralization and the theology of decentralization. And to keep things engaging, I will go back and forth on my board talking about the practical thoughts and the supernatural spiritual beliefs on why decentralization makes a lot of sense. And so let me begin. Let me begin with a story. All of you know about comic books, right? You know the story of Superman? His planet's about to erupt. His parents put him in a capsule. They send him off, and then he lands on Earth. And then he becomes the superhero, right? Well, that story was based off of someone. I wasn't there. I don't know if it's a real story, but it's said in the sacred scriptures about a man named Moses. And Moses, all the baby boys are being killed. And so Moses' parents put him in a little boat and put him in the river, and the Pharaoh's daughter found Moses and made Moses his own son. Now, When Moses took all of the Israelites out of Egypt, what happened was he was in total control, and Moses had centralized power. Whatever Moses said God wanted, that's what happened. Whatever Moses said was supposed to happen, that's what happened. And so Moses had complete, total dictatorship, tyrant control over everything that happens in all of the Israelites' life in the desert. And what happened? Moses' father-in-law came to him and said, "Son, this is not good. It is not good for you alone to have all this power and control. You should pick 10, and those 10 should pick 10, and each of those 100 should pick 10, and each of those 1,000 should pick 10, and you, my son, should decentralize power." That's the theology. You see, the theology is, it is not good for an individual, person, or business to have all that power. And it seems as though, starting with Moses, who in many ways is the father of both the Christian, Catholic, and Jewish faiths, as well as has a lot of impact on the Islamic faiths, that person with all that centralized power, that the theology was, it is not good. How about practically? Was it good for Moses to have all that power? Was that a wise thing for one man to be in control of all those people out in the desert? I would say practically, that's not a good thing. That it was way too much for one man to bear. That regardless of a spiritual belief, even if Moses was an atheist, it doesn't matter. It's not good for one man to carry the burden of all those decisions. One man should not have every single person coming to him with all of their ideas and their thoughts and their input and their feedback. And so practically, philosophically, it made a lot of sense for Moses to decentralize power. Let me tell you another story. There was a man, I wasn't there, I don't know exactly what happened, but supposedly 2,000 years ago, there was a man named Jesus from Nazareth. And that man, all of his people that followed him around, they thought he was going to take down Rome, and he was going to make the Jewish people and the Jewish synagogue powerful. And so they're like, here's our king. He's coming to build the Israelite, Hebrew, Jewish kingdom. But that's not what he did. So what did Jesus decide to do? Jesus decided that he would destroy everything that the Jewish people stood for in the synagogue, that he would fight against everything the Romans were doing with the government, and that he would also assault everything that was happening in the business world. You think they killed Jesus for fun? You think they nailed him to a cross and murdered him because they just had nothing better to do? No, they killed him because he was assaulting every single belief that was in place 2,000 years ago. And what did he say to his disciples? It is better for me to leave, because when I am gone, the 12 of you and the 144 of you, and eventually the thousands and millions, and now more than 1 billion humans claim to follow Jesus as Catholics and Christians and spiritual mystics. He said, it's better for me to leave, because when I leave, I will decentralize the mantle upon my life. I will take the power and authority I have to do signs and wonders, the power and authority that I have to do miracles, to do healings, to heal both emotionally and physically. And I will give you, my disciples, you, my followers, that power. I will decentralize power from me, and I will give you the power. That's the theology. That's the theology. You see? Now, what's the philosophy? Now, let's just say that Jesus was an atheist, which is kind of weird to even think about. But let's say that Jesus never talked about spiritual things. Why does it practically make sense for the spiritual leader that's made a bigger impact on the entire world? This individual that we know as Jesus of Nazareth never wrote a book, never wrote a song, never built a statue, never did a sculpture, never did a painting, never wrote poetry, never held a political office, never started a business. He was literally a homeless man that had a bunch of people following him around, and he had all that power. Power to raise the dead, power to multiply food. He had all that power. Now, why does it philosophically make sense for that man with all of that power to give the power away to others. You can ask Google or ChatGPT anything you want to know. Moses had nothing. He'd go up in a mountain, wait for this mysterious God to speak to him. Jesus was a homeless man, constantly hungry, constantly thirsty. No internet, no access to the knowledge of the world. You have so much before you. Will you, not all of you, but you right now listening to me, will you make the decision to think about the philosophy and the theology of why decentralization matters? Because if you don't change your family and if you don't change in your business, the government's not going to do it. It starts with your home. It starts with your corporation. It starts with your university. And if you will not make the change, do not expect the government to do it. The government will follow the people. Be part of the change. That is your opportunity. And I might raise my voice, but I'm not mad at you. I just want to make sure you hear me loud and clear. I believe in you. I believe this country is destined for greatness. I believe in 1,000 years people will talk about this time in this country, about what your generation is about to do. Will you be part of it or not? Because you're welcome to. And I thank you for your attention.
All right, Internet. We're about ready to get started again. And looking forward to bringing the next segment to all of you. We'll go live on the radio about 45 seconds. And time we'll chit chat here, but we're low on time. Just saying, Internet, I'm loving you right now. I'm loving that
We're on a roll.
All right, let's jump in. Here we go, everybody. Do you want a revolution? Do you want an uprising? Why or why not? Are you provoked by the things that you have access to on social media? Are you provoked by the things that AI tells you when you ask it questions, whether you're typing to Gemini or ChatGPT or asking questions of Alexa or Siri? How do you feel when you go research something on Wikipedia? Who says these things are even true? Technology's given us access to so much in the world, and oftentimes it causes people to respond aggressively. There was a recent movie that came out called Mountainhead. Steve Carell is in this movie, so that's one of the well-known actors. And it's basically a movie of 4 billionaires that get together once a year and basically pat each other on the back for how much money they're making and what a big impact they're making on the world. And two of the main characters, one has an AI company and one has a social media company. The guy with the social media company created a deep fake video tool. So imagine in a few years, TikTok, you just type into TikTok what you want and you say to TikTok, show me, this politician shooting this other politician in the head. Show me this actress, singing somebody else's song, whatever it may be. Well, what happened in the movie is people were using this tool and making deep fakes that looked radically real. And it caused in the movie, of course, a fictional story, it caused a lot of presidents and prime ministers to be killed because there's people in countries showing the presidents, prime ministers doing nefarious things. The people think it's real. They rise up against it and they hold them accountable. Another character in the movie has an AI tool, and the AI tool has the ability to decipher truth and lies. And part of the movie was the one guy with the social media site trying to get the guy with the AI tool to be like, hey, you got to give me your AI tool because I got to basically tell people this is true or not true. So I don't know if I recommend the movie. It was a mixed bag for me, but it definitely gave me a insight on how dangerous deep fakes might become. A story in the news that I found to be kind of shocking, then I'll kick it over to all of you, is, ask yourself this question. Who do you trust more with the truth? Yourself? Lawmakers? Algorithms? Courts? California tried to crack down on AI deepfakes in elections. And I think you may remember that became somewhat popular when Gavin Newsom wanted to say that it was illegal for people to post deepfakes about him and his homies. They wanted to force platforms to label and remove deepfakes. But last month, a judge overturned this law, saying that it clashed with free speech protections. So, we have to ask, do we believe free speech, even if it means posting deepfakes and lies? Or are we okay with not having free speech in certain regards? And where's that line be drawn? And, maybe you're more prone to say, I want this if you want a revolution, if you want an uprising, or you might be more prone to say that if you want to keep things the way they are. The big topic for today is, how does technology, hence social media, AI, etc., impact the world today, specifically the ability for things to change, an uprising, a revolution, people, governments, politicians, individuals being held account for what's been going on. So I'll kick it over to all of you, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts as we enter into our second hour. And for those that are listening to us on the radio, hello, radio people. We're grateful to have you with us. What do you think, son?
I think that technology like social media is something that is so unique that we have now. All of humanity, we don't have this ability to talk with people in a weird way. It's not fully real, but still to be able to communicate completely across the other side of the world. And now we do. So bam, that's there. But now you have all these other things that are applying, like the deep fakes. What? Now it's gone from, I can see something that happened all the way in New York City or all the way in Europe, but now I don't even know if it's real. And then you have this AI stuff that's happening. And you're like, okay, well, what is AI? It's like basically it can do a lot of things that people can do, but it's not a person. That's weird. Okay. And then now you have all these other things that are oriented towards like safety and doing this and doing that, which gets blanket term of like Web3. It's a third version of the internet. And so you have all these things that happen at the same time and lead to this moment. Now, what are we going to do about it? That's the question. And I think that in my mind, even though I talk about Web3 and I'm around you guys a lot, I kind of think of it as the little brother. AI is this thing is here. It's already going to happen. Everybody knows. Web3 is like, yeah, that's really cool. But then when I'm like really pondering about it, it feels so obvious that it needs to happen. And then it will happen because there's benefits. They're super obvious. They're something that similar things have happened in the past. Yeah, it was hard to use an iPhone when you first grabbed it, but now everybody knows how to use it. Everybody knows how to use social media. Everybody knows how to use the Photos app. That's just an example. It's going to be the same thing with Web3 because it has so many advantages. But the thing for me is, how are people going to make this happen? Are we going to make that revolution? Are we going to force the lawmakers to just do what actually is in our best interest? Having a conversation like we're having now is what makes things like that happen. But we still have to, as a society, decide, not just us. And that's the main thing that I've been thinking about more and more.
What do you think, Ted?
I'm still thinking about when a radio audience didn't get to hear your beautiful little speech about decentralization and comparing Moses and how he had a centralized model that had to be corrected and you needed to delegate power. And you compared him to Jesus, who was decentralized from the get-go, and how he died. And that was this ultimate, the church was birthed out of a decentralization because he gave his power away to his followers to the highest level. I think that's a very good speech on decentralization and the importance of it. And looking at revolutions, I want an effective revolution. Just giving power to the people. People can do evil stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's what a mob is. It's people doing evil stuff. And we'd earlier talked about the Russian Revolution, and I don't believe in czars, and czars were very oppressive. But I think it's pretty well documented that Stalin was he killed more Jews than Hitler, and he was one of the most evil people. I mean, we've had evil people in history. We always have evil people, but he was one of the first Hitler was probably a little bit before him, but he used modern machinery, the Industrial Revolution, to do evil at a scale that leaders before him had never done before. So there you have a revolution that overthrows evil dictators, and I think is quite the consensus is that it's more evil than the what they overthrew. That's the big thing, How do we have a revolution that's positive?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of them is, one of the principles is being humble and learning from the past. And I think we have to see, particularly here in America, we need to be grateful for our system and how much progress we've made, and put that in the historical context. I mean, the fact that we have for 200 years not have a revolution. We had the revolution. We had the Revolutionary War, and then we had the Civil War. But we have transferred power peacefully. And even as things get more escalated and we're all upset about how angry and volatile they are, and we're all talking about how more divisive American politics have been, and that's certainly true over the short term if you look back, over the last few decades. But if you look in the big context, I mean, we have always been divided, and in many ways we're far more gracious. Nobody's been clubbed by another senator inside, the Congress recently. That's what happened when the nation was being founded.
Are you sure?
And we need to understand that so that now we can iterate upon that and, yes, solve our problems. But if we come from the point of they don't know anything, we're in that danger of making things worse.
Yeah.
Good point.
This all is just making me think about the realist theory of thought. In one of the classes I'm taking in school right now, which is international relations, we're kind of just going through the broader theories of how you can say things are in different patterns. And this first core principle that we're talking about is realism, which is the common theory that a lot of people know, where you're in existential fear that humans are going to be humans. And for me, I don't really live like that. I live in a way where I understand that humans are animalistic and primal and awful, but at the same time, like you said, Dad, we also have the mind of God, and we are different. We're humans. And so realism completely ignores the mind of God and thinks of humans as purely animalistic. Now, I was having the thought today, and I said, what's the opposite of realism? When has this existed? And has it worked throughout society? And the answer my teacher gave me was, yeah, but the realists kind of just wiped out those people. And so it made me think, but what's the actual motive of having a realist thought? If you're assuming that everybody else wants to have more power, whether that's taking your land or stopping you from killing them or survival instincts, that's assuming that humans need and want power. But if you just don't care about power and instead life is content where you are, then what's stopping people from just enjoying life and being kind to each other? It's a thought that I feel like kind of goes into the theological sector, but it does apply into really everything else. A revolution starts because people want power. Whether that's because they see things on technology or because they see it with their own two eyes, they want more power. And so I think that's something that really affects.
They might want change, and they might want powerful people to no longer have power over them. It's been said that if you don't aim at anything, if you don't have a goal in mind, then, like, where do you point the arrow? And that's the whole point of having a bullseye. A bullseye, whether if you're throwing an axe, for all those axe throwers out there.
Just do darts. Just do darts.
If you got darts, or shooting a gun, or just looking for something, you have a goal in mind. The bullseye says that is where I'm heading. That's where I'm focused on. And if you don't have a goal, then who knows where you're going to land? Who knows which direction you're going to go? I think that societies that don't have a goal end up going toward revolution, and societies that have a very specific goal may have the grace to end up with a reformation.
So then what should our goal be?
If at all possible, it is ideal for society to go through a reformation over revolution. Let me explain my belief around this and why that's the case. The outcome of a reformation is the existing system is improved. So we get to keep America, but we improve America. We get to keep our family, but we improve our family. So a reformation inside of a family says that mom and dad figure out their problems and make positive changes and get along better. Mm-hmm. That parents and children figure out the conflict and find a way to work within the confines of one home peacefully together. That employer and employee don't part ways, but find out how can they get the most out of their time working together. That's a reformation. A revolution is a divorce. A revolution is a brand new government system. Revolution is the family goes separate ways. The employee leaves, maybe trying to cause some chaos. So there's a big difference between a revolution, call it a fire to burn everything down and hoping that something rises from the ashes, and a reformation, call it planting a new crop and trying to harvest something different. So what do you guys believe about the goal that we have in mind and the fact that without a goal, things often stay either the same or it leads to that fire just kind of overtaking what is, burning it all down to the ground, hoping that some sort of revolution rises up again, compared to the potential desire of having a reformation? And ultimately, do we think that technology will lead us to a reformation culture, which is not something that we've really seen for maybe a millennia, right? It's been many, many centuries since we've seen a culture of a reformation, a reformative culture, which we saw across art and faith and literature and society by and large 500 plus years ago. So what do we want? Do we want a revolution? Do we want a reformation? Why? And how do we see that playing out? What do you think, Nigel?
I think that reformation is better. Revolution may be necessary. I find myself saying this more often now. In the absence of reason, there's extremes.
Let me ask you this, Nigel. Let me ask you this real quick. I'm saying those two words over in my head, and what I'm seeing, what I'm visualizing is the word to reform or the reformation. It's making me think that whatever was going on is being reformed and changed, but the entities are still in power. We're just changing. We're reforming the thing. And when you have like generational change or complete, upheaval or uprising, that's when the revolt happens and you get a revolution. And there have been a lot of youth movement revolutions throughout time. Women had a revolution in independence through the 70s, and that was not a reformation. We demand our rights. We want the equalities. So I think that there's a point. And my question to you, Nigel, is you were just saying between the difference between the reform and a revolution or a revolt. So yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I shouldn't have cut you off and let you finish.
No, that's perfect. I think it starts with this. We're not asking ourselves, okay, well, take the 5 of us here. If we asked ourselves this questions with a narrow lens, what can we do better? No complaints, no blame. What can we do better? I can almost guarantee you that politicians don't really do that. Not in that context. Where can I fight? The bullseye or the axe throwing with alcohol, which is ridiculous, is arguing. You have highly intelligent people that I can't believe you can't find some common ground. But the arguing, the vitriol, that kind of thing, the backbiting.
There's common ground. It's at the bar where the axe throwing is going on. they settle that really quick. I've seen that. I've seen that on some ESPN. Do they have? But are you being facetious? Do they have axe throwing?
Yes.
Okay.
This was one of the
that seemed like that would be a first off a safety code violation at the lowest.
It's
level.
happened. I've even looked up accidents that's happened.
So then they must go into a cage that's completely locked, individual cage, because when you beat me 3 times in a row and I went triple or nothing, don't have the money to pay you, so I'm gonna have to work this out another way.
Dude, there's booze there.
That's what I'm saying.
This is not a good idea.
I've never heard of that. Maybe cornholing or something with alcohol.
I'm not quite sure what we're talking about now.
I know.
We're talking about how strange it is that axe throwing happens inside bars with drinking.
The oxymoron of it, Ted.
They throw darts. I mean, a dart could hit you in your eye.
Yes.
Yeah, not like an axe.
Axe is a little bit bigger, though.
And they're plastic tip darts now. They don't even use metal tip anymore. They're the plastic ones that go in the hole. So, yeah, axe throwing with alcohol. Seem to have moved back a couple 100 years there.
Humans are always going to be humans, though.
I guess. I don't even
know how to break stuff.
I don't even own an axe.
The women's rights movement, was that, according to our definition, back to that, the women's rights movement, is that a revolution or a reformation?
Well, okay, so
how are we defining
people
that?
definitely have different definitions, but by and large, a revolution is often bloody, violent, done by force, and can't be reversed. A reformation is often done peacefully within the confines of the existing law and can be reversed and modified. Revolutions are often very fast, very aggressive, where a reformation is often very slow, and it's easy for people to absorb it. So let me give you an example, right? The American Revolution revolted against the British government and started a completely new way of doing things. Elon Musk just made a joke about how they just opened up their X algorithm. The entire X.com algorithm is opened up. And he said it's not to impress anybody. It's to show how broken our system is. He said, we're trying to do everything we can with these community notes to kind of hold things accountable. He said, and we have the worst ever algorithm. It's just that ours is better than everybody else's. And that's the whole thing with the American democracy, right? It's been said that our republic is the worst form of government that we could come up with, but there's never been a better one than it. Because all forms of government are really, really challenging, especially when you're trying to govern 300 plus million people. So when America started, it was a revolt against kings. It was a revolt against taxation. It was a revolt against the way that things were done in Britain in the late 18th century. In comparison, the spiritual Reformation, when Martin Luther posted his 95 Thesis against the Catholic Church, it was not a bloody revolution. It was not a fast revolution. It was not that Britain once controlled the American soil and now they don't. Instead,
it's not historically accurate.
Okay, Teddy. Instead, it was a reformation because it was done slowly over time, and it was done in confines of people still being able to work together. And so when you look at the difference between the bloodshed, right? Britain sent their entire army over here to try to stop the American Revolution because it was and we never went back to Britain. But lots of people that jumped into the Protestant Reformation and became a protester and became a Protestant, a Baptist, a Lutheran, they went back to the Catholic Church because it wasn't too late. There's still the flexibility of the Catholics and the Protestants working together and being one and still being all of them following the same basic faith, where in comparison, you don't have that reality with Britain and America. You've never had America rejoin Britain. It was a revolution. So that would be two historical examples. But Ted, I want to hear your thoughts, but not now. Not now.
Yeah, we took
maybe after the commercial break. I'm gonna let you think about your thoughts for a moment.
We need
Let you
AI.
think about your thoughts, and then we'll get to our fourth segment and final segment for the day. Everyone here in Radio Land, thank you for joining us. We'll be back again in 4 minutes.
Ian, you got another great video for us? I really like that last one. I never heard that message. Where did you preach that at?
That wasn't
In
preaching.
the Philippines.
That was just a tech talk, bro.
Oh, that wasn't preaching. If it acts like a duck and it quacks like a duck, and it's got webbed feet and it swims in the water and it's got oil on its back, it's all right to call it a duck. So that was a good message.
That was last year's Philippine Blockchain Week. And the guy that runs Philippine Blockchain Week, my friend, he came up to me. He's like, "You're a prophet. You're a prophet to the Philippines." And I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, you run this event. You say I'm a prophet to the Philippines. Fine, dude. I'll lay down something prophetic. And so I decided to go that direction. It was. I really. It's one of the things I've communicated I feel best about.
That was beautiful. No, that was wow. And now that I know, because I thought you were in a Christian conference. So
no, it's just a business conference.
Good job, man. Congratulations. You never shared that with me before. I would have loved to hear that.
Well, there it is. I'm glad you could hear it.
Jesus was you can make a case that he started a business. He was a businessman. He was a poet.
Yes.
Now that's not making a case. I can read you some of his poems. So all of his he was a theologian through poetry, the Hebraic version, the Hebraic poetry. But his parables were very, very poetic. They were poems, and that's how he was teaching. So to say Jesus wasn't a poet isn't really true. We have his poems written down.
How dare they? Those people.
Just giving you a little fact checking, since we're talking about AI.
You need to check your facts before you fact check.
You're using DeepSeek.
Stop asking the CCP for truth, bro.
Yes, bro.
Enough of that.
Bro,
The
Jesus as a poet? Yep, he was a poet.
End of the rising sun and come back over to the red, white, and blue.
On the faith, did you guys know that the Japanese prime minister, I think it's Japanese, it could have been South Korean, Japanese prime minister, he said last week, we have to let immigrants in because of my Christian faith.
Who's we? Meaning America? Like
Japan. Japan. The Japanese prime minister made a declaration last week, I'm a Christian, so therefore we have to let immigrants in because that's the Jesus way.
Okay.
And but not in America.
Back.
We got to kick him out. That's the Jesus way in America.
You should have brought that up when I was saying when people want
to
say,
quit.
Dude, you need to go, and the guy feels so threatened that he goes, you know what? It's best for me.
This quit. One's really funny.
It's best that I quit because I don't want to.
Number one podcast or top 10 podcast in the world, All In podcast with David Sachs, the crypto AI czar.
they have Tucker Carlson and Mark Cuban on the show. And Mark Cuban's like, we need to give more money to Ukraine. We need to give more money to Ukraine. We need to give more money to Ukraine. And Tucker goes, hey, Mark, how much money have you sent to Ukraine yourself personally? Well, none. Why don't you do the thing that you're asking America to do? How about you go ahead and send your money to Ukraine? And it was like the way it was delivered was quite a moment. And that's the whole thing. It's like, hey, Mr. Japanese man that wants to bring all the immigrants in, why don't you open up your house and let all the immigrants live at your house?
Ukraine is fortunate that Starlink is available to them.
Oh, dude.
Wow. So we're talking about our immigration. I actually think Japan is opening its borders to immigration. They need to because the Japanese are getting older and dying, and it's a good policy. So,
all right.
Wow, I'm glad we're cutting this off because we're going to get super controversial here, and we're not a political show.
Welcome back to our final segment here at Beachside Tech Talk. We kept the conversation going during the commercial break, so I think we'll hit the ground running. Basically, all of us think Ted's wrong. I'm not sure what Ted's even talking about.
I think that Ted
but we
is
just
not wrong.
The consensus that we have, except for Malachi, the three men in the room, we have come to the conclusion. We're not sure what you're talking about, Ted, but we just are kind of throwing it out there. You're wrong. So prove us that you're right. What are you even talking about, Teddy?
I know what he wants to say.
What's he going to say?
He's going to say, when you were talking about the revolution and when we came over to extricate ourselves from Britain and we revolted and we weren't having that and we had a giant war called the Revolutionary War, I was just wondering, this is from Ted speaking.
This is Teddy.
Yeah. What the Native Americans were thinking at that moment.
Hey, that's a fair
I always
question.
love that about Mr. Haas. Mr. Haas is always bringing back in.
Take yourself out of our country. And
hey, that matters for the three of us. Three of us.
Okay.
Our
I feel like it's
great
really
grandma.
common in
She's
today's
100%
world.
Native American.
It's really common in today's world that people are like, oh, you should feel so bad because of what America did to Native Americans. It's like, dude, that was 4 generations ago. Why would I feel bad for that myself? And so
if you talk to some Native Americans, maybe they would change your mind for the moment.
Well, at least the white people say that Native Americans feel that way.
Ted,
I'm going to share some insight.
I don't hear you.
And this one's important.
Go ahead.
So I went to the.
What? God bless you.
I went to the second Million Man March.
I love you, Teddy.
When was that?
And
was that in the 90s?
2017, 2016.
Oh,
something
was
like
it that late? That was at Washington in the monument, right? They had another. It was like the Dr. Martin Luther King Day, right? When he gave his speech.
Right.
Okay.
But I learned something that day. There were a number of speakers, and then there was some Native American speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And for all this becoming, Million Man March, was largely about Black folks, and wow, the passion. I think for anyone listening in that moment, you understood, you became acutely aware of it could be 400 years, it could be 4 million years. There's real feelings. Because even for me, I was like, wow.
Didn't realize that.
That's a lot of anger.
Well, it's a good point, though. It is. It's a good point. And I was just thinking, because you're saying, what do we call Native Americans? So first of all, we are admittingly calling them Americans first, and then admitting that they are the native. They were the ones here first. And the fact that I'll go as far as to say it's still a giant division for them. It's an unfortunate thing that, there was something wasn't being able to work out a little bit better before the Louisiana Purchase there. Yeah. I'll just do that there because someone who was geographically placed in an area or something that was first, there's much more better opportunities and ways of working out a population issue. Not only that, like there's not enough space in America. Has anyone flown from east to west coast in the last year? It
Nothing
seems
but
to me,
open land.
yeah, I'm looking outside, and as soon as I leave, get past Nevada, maybe, and go to the middle of the country and get near Texas, and you're going over the middle. I don't see really anything, no buildings, no nothing. It's just land,
I've
land,
driven
land,
across our country multiple
land,
times.
land,
East Coast, West Coast, back and forth. It is just a
Empty.
lot of empty land. We took a train with a famous Zephyr train across America from New York to Chicago to San Francisco. I mean, it's like 80% empty. And I mean empty. I mean far empty. Like you don't see nothing for a long time.
Right.
Wait, can we feed this thought real quick of what if we were kind to them? Because the Native Americans, I mean, they did an amazing job at being good humans in a lot of ways. They were gracious and kind, and yet we just thought, oh, we have guns. Well, we'll just take your land. And so with feeding
we call
the
them
thought
savages.
of,
We treat them like animals a little bit, but they were much more in tune with an animal world.
It's true. They cared a lot more about nature.
Have you seen
But
The
if
Last
we
of
had let them-
Mohicans yet?
It's
Have you
hard
seen
to
Daniel
beat-
Day-Lewis's movie, The Last of the Mohicans?
I have.
Of course.
Great movie.
You should probably watch that. Of course. Hello. You should probably watch that because that, to me, is a fairly powerful, emotional, fictional case study on the complexity of trying to merge societies together.
That's a good point.
And regardless of how many motivations people had to get along, there's all these levers that are constantly being pulled, either by the foreigners that are coming in and occupying the land or by the Native Americans. And remember, it's not like every Native American loved each other. They were lots of tribes that hate each other and
Massively.
fought. So you're coming into an environment where lots of these Native Americans are at war with one another. And then all of a sudden, these potential occupiers come and all of them are thinking like, are they for me and against all my enemies? So it was very, very complicated. I think that movie does a fairly good job of trying to humanize the challenges that were faced by everyone involved, especially the Native Americans. But I do recognize, Ted, that you have more awareness of what had happened in California, especially over the course of the last, 200-300 years. And maybe there are stories of revolution and stories of reformation that you may want to share with all of us as we're on this topic. So take it away.
So you want me to talk about the Native Californians? Okay, I'll adjust that. Like, I can relate to Malachi, and what he's saying is like, these happened generations ago. He threw out 400 years ago. Well, 1849 was when gold was discovered in California.
4 generations ago.
So 4 generations ago.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he has kind of defaulted to that, where there's a lot of guilt, and particularly over young people and over young men more than anything else. And we just want to blame them and make them feel bad about themselves and make them think that the proper response to these atrocities that happened in the past is for them feeling bad about who they are and growing up as a man and just carrying this guilt. And I mean, there's psychologists that, who've addressed this. It's very unhealthy. That's a very negative response. And that doesn't help anything. And I think that just further drives the division. I can only share about my own perspective. What made me change my worldview is through the deep relationships I was able to build with Indigenous leaders. They allowed me to see things differently. And I mean, was it Malachi that threw out, can we imagine a world, what if we had treated them better?
Yeah.
I think we can't change the past, but like in my own personal life, for me to make change over issues that I needed to change in, the first step was to face the truth. I had to stop denying the negative things I did. I had to face them. I have to listen to the people I've hurt. I have to look them in the eyes. I have to hear their pain and feel their pain. That's the first step to then moving from continuing down this toxic path to then laying a foundation of truth so we can build a better future. I think that's how we need to approach the past. and we need to be willing to look the people in the eyes. So, like, Danny was bringing out, and Nigel. To us, these happened a long time ago. But you can go to, the reservation, the seven flat. There's a reservation in Mendocino County.
Many reservations here in California, bro. There's many.
Yeah, one of the primary ones in Mendocino County was where we had our own Trail of Tears where we marched them out, and the survivors of different massacres here in California. You go there right now, and here in California, this huge economy. If we were a country, we'd be the 5th largest country in the world. And yet you have this abject poverty, and you see the pain and the suffering that's there. And okay, so how they got there, that's the past, but the conditions they're living in right now, and you look at the indigenous people overall, they're not doing well. And if we care about them and want to lift them up, that's where we start. And then how, maybe by hurting them, we actually hurt ourselves. And maybe we can build a better foundation of coming together and setting a trajectory for a human flourishing that brings everybody in, that just smash over some of them.
There's still a lot of division. I mean, I'm talking today. This is 2026 almost. And I did a lot of salmon fishing up north near the and have fished a lot of the rivers up near the Oregon border and down, but specifically at the Klamath. They once a year at Labor Day, they'll let you fish the Klamath if the water's right and the fishery is right and the count is right on the fish. And there's a huge influx of salmon that come through out of the ocean, and they're the most beautiful fish you'll ever see. They have scales all over them, and they're bright, shiny silver, and they just have this different look. And they enter into the fresh water of the Klamath River right there. And when I would do those trips with my good friend, the Indians still had ownership of the river. In other words, we weren't able to use our little drift boats or anything on the river at all. And the Indians, the natives that were there, they were able to put up.
I was at a place in Oregon that was like.
They were able to put up nets across the rivers, and they were so part of the giving back to the Indian nations was, you still get to own and have rights to these lands, but not necessarily deed and title, but the waterways and the fisheries.
Yeah.
They're able to maximize, a good profit dollar. There were multiple freezer trucks from Safeway, Albertsons, and all of the heavy food chains that would be up there because they would catch, hundreds and hundreds of fish a day, millions of dollars worth of fish on my 3 days that I was there. But it was interesting to still see that it still goes on today, and we would see arguments over fishermen who are parking off the Highway 101, staying the night, and then a Native American was able to kind of put up the river or something and break his line, or unintentional, or whatever the case may be. But I was witnessing Native Americans and Americans literally just a couple of years ago still fighting on the shores of a waterway over rights to fish. Yeah. And it was I was on the other side of the river, and I'm just looking at it going, wow, from that perspective, times really haven't changed.
That just makes me think about how there's many different times where things that we thought were very different in their time and when they happened actually happened like the same time. Like, I think I saw a stat that there were still woolly mammoths on the world when the Pyramid of Giza was, or maybe it was like 1,000 years before the Pyramid of Giza, there were still woolly mammoths on the world. And like, that's a really big shock. Like, whoa. I thought that those were like way back when you look at humanity, but no, they are not that far. And then the Native Americans. You have Native Americans who are still fishing right next to a Safeway truck. And I'm not speaking for you, but in my mind, I definitely don't see those two right next to each other.
It was a weird dichotomy to
yet
see
they
that
are.
and happening, and then like I was saying, and then to have two people,
Yeah.
and the one guy might have been a Mexican, so it looked like I was a Mexican and an Indian fighting with each other over this fish right, and what are you doing? You broke my line, but you think you have rights to the Indian, but and you can hear it from the other side, and it didn't get physical, but definitely was getting loud. And seeing these two guys, and they almost looked like they were cousins.
It's very easy for conflict to escalate because it requires one person or one group to lay down their right to be right and allow a sliver of hope for peace.
Right.
I asked some of these AI tools what they think Martin Luther and George Washington might say to us about our conversation today. Luther being...
I thought you were going to say what they'd say to each other and say, listen, man, I told you this. No, listen here, Darky. I'm trying to tell you something right now.
So
I can see George Washington and Martin Luther King having it
getting at
out.
it.
Yeah, just getting down.
Well, no, I'm talking
I'm
talking Martin Luther, the reformer.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the king.
But
since
you brought up the king.
Ask AI?
Yeah, I will say this since you brought up the king. My favorite monument in the whole world I've ever seen in my whole life is the Martin Luther King Jr. Monument in D.C. And I've been in San Francisco. I've lived in San Francisco. I've been there hundreds of times, had office there. I never knew that there's a massive, epic Martin Luther King Jr. memorial right there in San Francisco, right by the Moscone Center. So I was just floored by that. And it just reminded me there's so many things in the world that are so beautiful and inspiring that we have no idea are even there.
Yeah, we can always find this like negative things that are happening in the world.
If you're looking for it, you'll find it.
But yet there is always going to be something positive.
Yeah. So let me read a couple of these things. I think it's very interesting. The thought of Washington, the revolutionary, Martin Luther, the reformer, being here with us, talk about tech's impact on revolution, the potential desire for reformation. So here's a couple fake quotes that they gave me. Washington, AI is a new army. It's swift and tireless. The question is, who commands it? The people or the elites? Martin Luther might say, AI should not replace human thought. It should sharpen wisdom and widen access. So those are things that were shared by ChatGPT. Here's what Gemini said to me on the sense of social media. George Washington might say, I see the very spirit of party I warned of, and now on a grander scale. This technology divides our country into two angry camps, and no man can speak without being torn down by the mob. It is a sword that cuts our republic in half. Where Martin Luther might say, this is the new printing press, but instead of paper, it is in the air. It's a great gift to give every man a voice against corruption, yet a terrible tool, for it spreads more lies than truth. So Grok also gave me a bunch of quotes. And so these quotes, I got a bunch of these quotes, right? And you kind of, it doesn't matter if Martin Luther or George Washington would say that. These are just potential ways they might respond as a revolutionary or a reformer. So before we end our time today, my question for the four of you, when your time has come up in this world and the impact has been made and the legacy has been written, do you desire to be a revolutionary in any way, form? Do you desire to be a reformer? Why would you prefer one over the other? So, son, you're the young buck here. Would you like to be a revolutionary reformer? Why?
Thank you for asking. I would absolutely like to be a reformer because revolutionary assumes that I have to be animalistic, that I have to want power or want to get my humanness back, whether that's through power or something. When I feel like it'd be better to just try and do things in a good way, in a way that I see as noble, instead of a way that's purely savage.
Nigel, what do you think, my friend? Do you desire to be a revolutionary or reformer? Why?
I'm going to go different, down the middle, an activist. And I think we're doing it.
Yeah, this is
The-
activism
the-
right here. Being on the radio,
Yeah,
being on the internet.
that's what I was going to say. The catalyst to have the conversation,
Mhm.
to challenge my belief in the goodness that we're capable of, to say, is this the best that we can do? Can we do better? And how do we do it?
And this matters because every one of the people listening, whether you're on radio or live stream, now this is a thought that you've just had.
Right.
Now
Where do
you
wanna be?
understand
I'll
this,
tell
and
you
now
what,
maybe you might go talk with someone about it because these are important things.
If we don't change some of these laws, and thank God we're getting a new governorship coming in pretty soon,
Yeah.
you're going to have a revolution.
It'll be bloody in California if we
I'm-
don't make some changes.
Hey, I'm not kidding.
If we don't
So-
give room for reformation in some of the parts of our society, we give no option but a revolution. And we really don't want that end result, in my opinion. Teddy, what's your thought? Revolution, reformation, how come?
I want to be used for positive impact, and
Teddy wants to
I
end
want to be an
recidivism.
activist. That's what I can control. I want to see reformation. I want to see us get better. And was Jesus a revolutionary? Well, he took the weight upon himself. So,
Well, he was
I
called
want
a
to be a catalyst
revolutionary.
for change,
Over for
and I want it to be positive change. And I hope that we can avoid the horrible violence that a revolution brings.
Well, I definitely want to see jails close. I want to see museums of the incarcerated. I want to see homeless encampments cleared out, not by force, but by transformation. I want to see museums of the homeless. I want to see scarcity end and abundance be set free. So if that requires a revolution, may it come. If it can be done within a reformation, hallelujah and amen. Until tomorrow, everybody.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.